First, let me
Dang.
introduce myself. My name is Leticia. I own Utopia Magic, or I run it, own it, and also Erison Tribe page, and I'm the creator for both of those. And this is
I'm Amy, and I have a YouTube channel, a growing YouTube channel, and I have known Leticia for like 2, 3 years, probably like 3 years, something like that.
2021.
Yep, so it's been 3 years. So yeah. And she lets me do readings on her pages.
And what's the name of your YouTube channel, Amy?
Wind of Regeneration. Few ghost stories, and I don't know if they were ghosts or like angels and demons. I do think some of them might have been ghosts though, just messing with me like tricksters. Um, but it was typically only whenever I was in demonic energy, like I was using a Ouija board one time, well, a few times, few years back. And then the other time there was some demonic earthly stuff going on that I was going through. And and that's when I've experienced all this stuff. Any other time I've always known that stuff was around. You ever been sitting in your room and like all of a sudden you think that you hear the door open, and like you know how you can hear a door open and hear the energy from the other room come in?
Yeah.
Well, I would do that as a kid so many times and turn around and the door would be shut, like nobody come in. So like you can tell when energy gets around you. But anyways, I had some experiences with, I seen an orb, a really big orb, like it was like that, I want to say like that round, and it was all white, and it floated across my doorway. And oh, this was the same house. All of my animals that I had there died, by the way. They would get really sick. And there was this other time that I seen a shadow person. I had a dream a few years back whenever I was a teenager. Not a few years back. I mean, I'm 24 now, but when I was a teenager, I had a dream that I was being chased by this man, and he went like that in my dream. And then years later, I'm an adult and I'm sleeping in my living room, and my kid's in her room beside the living room, and I check over the back of the couch to see how she's doing in her room, and I seen a shadow figure standing over her bed, like facing her, like looking down at her. And when I ran in there, I screamed the same hey that the man that was chasing me in my dream was screaming at me. So wow. When I went to chase that shadow figure, it was the same exact scream, which is so weird because I don't know, I guess I sound like a man when I scream. I don't really know, but it was the same exact scream. And then
you sound like a man. What do you mean?
Like I guess whenever you get like super fear or super strength in your body, like your scream doesn't sound like you, I guess.
Yeah. I've done that before in my sleep.
But, and then another time, and this was actually living in this place here, some things was going, not that I was like bad off or anything, but like some other things was going down, and like toxic drama, stuff like that, and it was really demonic and evil. And then another time, I was standing, actually that night before that happened, another time I was standing on my back porch and I seen my fence, and behind the fence was a black head, and it popped up and it popped back down real quick, and it scared me. I ran back inside. And other than that, I haven't really had any that I can remember right now ghostly experiences.
Okay.
What about you?
Well, Nathan's on. Nathan, you want to introduce yourself for a minute and then talk about one of your ghost stories?
Where do you want me to start?
Well, first introduce yourself, and you can say your YouTube channel or whatever, and then tell us your ghost story.
Okay, well, my name is Nathan, but people call me Merlin because I have my YouTube channel is Merlin Fae Kings Crown. But yeah, people just call me Merlin. My first ghost experience was when I think I was about the age of 6, and I was having a stay over at my cousin's house, and we slept on a pallet. It's where you just put several blankets on the floor, and we just sleep on that. Pretty rough, but you're a kid. It's fun. It's something different. So anyways, during the middle of the night, I thought I saw my aunt. She had her arms stretched out like this at me, and I just thought it was her. But the problem was, she was just a torso. She didn't have no legs. Like wicked, like smile, like it was trying to come across as innocent, but I could tell even at that age it was wicked because it's like this, and I know there's no way in hell that's my aunt without a torso just floating there. And so, of course, you're a kid, you don't think nothing of it. You just put it in the back of your mind, right? He's like, oh, maybe I was just half asleep, but no. So I'm pretty sure that was doppelganger or trying to mimic. They call it mimic. That was just trying to appear as her, appear as something that that would let my guard down or something. For whatever purpose these entities want to do, right? So I'm not gonna say it's a ghost because she's still among the living. So it had to be a doppelganger. I would go over there often because me and my cousin basically brought up like brothers or whatnot. And so at age 13, my uncle-in-law handed me a pamphlet that said, "Are you psychic?" And so I read through it. I did all the steps and stuff. And after that, the lights would start to flicker when I was over there, and I would start asking it questions like, blink once for a yes response or whatever for no. And it would do it. On the dime, started drinking some coffee. I wanted to pretend it wasn't. But I was still interested in paranormal, occult, and stuff like that. Just wanting to seek higher wisdom, to get to the bottom of it. So I got my hands on a book of daemons, and I did those steps. And I thought, okay, it didn't work. Nothing happened. I didn't get no magical response or anything like that, right? Mm-hmm. But 2 weeks after that, there were these footsteps each night for like a period of 3 days, right? Would get closer and closer, like the floor would creak and it would just stop. And you could just feel like there's like this presence of dread getting closer and closer to my bed. I think on the third or fourth night, my face at the end of the bed with a most wicked smile ever. And I was so scared, I jumped out of the bed and I twisted my ankle, my left ankle, really, really bad. I just lay there in agony after seeing that. And so after that, I realized I needed to research these things, actually find out how to do these things properly instead of just go in there willy nilly and just putting it in a category of just like, oh, people sell Ouija boards to kids or whatnot, and it can't be all that real, right? And so after that, started researching more and more. I mean, I got more ghost stories, but I'll let Amy have the floor, or you, and I'll talk to
Charlie just joined us, so Are you there?
Hi, y'all. I'm sorry I'm late to the
Hey.
party. My 8-year-old had to be put to sleep and she has attachment issues. I'm sorry. You're
No
not
worries.
fine.
So
That's cool.
introduce yourself, Charlie, and tell us who you are for like a brief minute. And then if you have a ghost story, you're welcome to share it.
Okay. They kind
Something
of tie
haunted
in.
happened to you or something.
Well, they kind of tie in together into like how I got into this work. Hi, Shanae. Welcome. Um, welcome, waka. Hi. Okay, so um I got into like or back into it really like I've been always drawn to the occult, which makes sense looking at my chart. Like I have Saturn and Mars in Scorpio, born on a night chart. So square my Aquarius moon. Anyway, all that to say, I got into this because I had been living in a house that was haunted. My ex husband and I had bought this house in 2016. So my daughter was an infant. And there are three occurrences that I can think of off the top of my head. The last one is what really like launched me getting into this work and learning more about tarot and really diving deep into all things occult for the last few years. So when we bought the house, one of the very first nights that we were in the house, sleeping in the house, my ex-husband had fallen asleep downstairs on the couch. I was up in our room with our daughter, infant. You know, she was 9 months old, 10 months old at the time. And she had, like, she went straight off the bed, like, she flew off the bed. And I wake up and she's screaming. And I'm like, I just sat up in a panic, like, and I don't know how many of you guys have kids, but if you have had that, happen, you sit up in a panic and you're like patting around, where's my kid? What is going on? Like I look down, she's on the floor with just her feet sticking out. So her head ended up under the bed. I'm like, how is that even a thing? Like, what? And I had concern when we had first bought the house. Like, I had asked the realtor specifically, like, y'all got to tell us if somebody died in the house, right? Like, they didn't, but I still had an inkling. Anyway, then I had another instance where I got jumped. What is my camera doing? Sorry, my camera's spazzing out.
That's okay.
What's happening? Okay, whatever. So, I was laying in bed with my daughter. She's a little bit older at this point. She's like verbalizing things, right? She's probably closer to 3 at this point, like 2.5, 3, falling asleep in the bed. And she said, Mommy, I can't fall asleep because of the smoky faces in the closet. I said, I'm sorry. What? Smoky faces in the closet. This is, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And so, I said, I pointed at the closet. I said, hey, smoky faces, leave my baby alone. Let her fall asleep. If you got a problem, you mess with me. Of course, I shouldn't have done that, knowing what I know now. So I got jumped that night. We were starting to fall asleep. You know that feeling when you're falling asleep and you get like the jump thing, like you're falling? I thought that's what had happened. I had screamed in her face. And she was like, and I said, oh, because she was like, oh, Mommy. She was, I'm scared. She was like genuinely frightened. I was like, what do you mean, baby? It was just a little jump. She goes, no, Mom, you screamed in my face. And she's always been very verbal. Like, let me just say that because she was very young, but she's always been very verbal with us. She started speaking at a really young age. Then the final occurrence that I can think of in that house, it was after I had already been diagnosed. So I'm a cancer survivor, stage 3 invasive ductal carcinoma, breast cancer. And I had just finished chemo and I was almost done with radiation. And I had been getting Reiki healing throughout my throughout my treatment because it helped. So had a family friend come by who was a Reiki master. She came and cleansed the house. And at the very end, I got pulled out of my room. Like I had been sort of like just hiding in my room the whole time, just tucked up under my covers in a lot of pain and all that. She cleansed me as well. And it was like a cloud had been lifted. And for that, we specifically got our daughter out of the house. Because at this point now, yeah, she's 3 years old, 3.5, almost 4. So she left the house for that. Came back like very late the next night, woke up, went to school, and then the very next time that she came back in the door, where she was like, awake, cognizant, like a normal night, it was her, myself, and our dog going back into the house. And the first thing she said to me was, Mommy, she's like, it's just us. And I went, yeah, baby, of course it's just us. Like, what do you mean? And she said, no, Mommy, there's like no smoky faces. I said, I'm sorry, what? Like, we're still on this? Like, whoa. So yeah, it was just a trip that, after all of these different things had been occurring, and it also, awoken me to my own whatever zhuzh, whatever this
kids and
brujeria thing that I got going on now. And
kids and animals are more likely to sense it than us. Likely to see it first.
Yeah, well, I sensed it. Like I said, when we first walked the house, when we were doing the thing with the realtor, and I kept hearing the name Michael, I was like, did a man die in the house? Turns out the reason I was hearing that was because our family friend used to live across the street from the house. So he grew up like with the kid that lived in the house, like knew the family, and the father had died in the house. Ultimately, I think from a broken heart. His wife had died unexpectedly the year before. And then he kind of buried himself in a bottle. Mm-hmm. So I kept hearing the name Michael. And the realtor was like, no, well, the wife died, whatever. Like the last owner was a flipper. And that's because homeboy died. So it was like wife died, then he died in the bottle, flipper bought it. And so because the flipper was the last owner, they were not legally obligated to explain any of the other stuff to us. It was through my own research and talking to neighbors and friends and that I found out what had really happened in the house. So, yes, we had a situation going on, and then going through all of that, yeah, it awoken me to where I am now. So, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you for sharing your story.
Not gonna lie, that scared me a little bit. Again, my Mars, Saturn, Aquarius situation, my Chiron super conjunct my sun. Like I have a 0-degree sun in Gemini, with 2-degree Chiron. So, a 2-degree conjunction to my sun. And I have a solar yod. So the base of the yod is Pluto and Neptune. Neptune being right at the apex up at my MC, shining right down into, yeah. If I was in the trauma Olympics, let's just say I'm going for gold. You know what I mean? Put it that way. So.
Okay. Let's see. Shanae. Do you want to introduce yourself? Say, who you are and everything, and then if you have a ghost story or some kind of haunted event.
My name is Shanae. I've probably been in the works professionally probably like last 4 years. But I've dealt with stuff my whole life. I just didn't know like the names of things, and I kind of thought everyone knew what I knew or felt what I felt. And at a really young age, I remember having that discernment and feeling like it was a burden even as a child. I remember like knowing not to go into, I could like read people's moods and their energy. I'm an energy reader, really strong. I know your energy before you speak, kind of thing. So through the years, I would say I work mainly on intuitive tarot, spiritual coaching, mainly in spiritual experience, healing, childhood kind of stuff, and mediumship as well. So that was kind of the clue to me when I was young, when a lot of things were happening to me and not happening to a house full of people. And I remember when I was really young, it was really isolating. I grew up in a foster home, and there was a lot of, just like abusive energy. So I was already like the perfect candidate, for those kids in the movies that, they're not credible, they don't believe them. I kind of was, I had a lot going on, so I acted out in little ways. I also was a mute when I was a child. So I remember really young, like experiencing things and just like being really afraid of it. And the older I got, I kind of came to a head when I was about 7 years old, and I started to morph to hearing them. They would do stuff like throw stuff down, jiggle my door like crazy in the room full of people. It was like a circus act. I could get them to listen to what I told them to do. It was almost that haunted, right? And I would prove to people that just were like, what the hell? Like, there's no way, but it was in their face. Like the door's jiggling, there's no one there. And it was like, I was like, do this. And I remember, I was young at this point, but when it started to get scary, which older now I understand, like I was like blood in ocean water. I was exposed. And when you're exposed in those frequencies, I am exposed to more than just spirits per se. I'm also Native American. My grandpa is a medicine man. We're just taught a little different on things, and there's more than just spirit world. And frankly, spirits are the least of what I worry about, So that was my first tipping my toe into that radio station, and I was noticed, right? And things started to happen where I started to hear them, and I'll never forget that. It almost like I was sitting in, me and my foster sister were home, and no one was there. And I went out in the living room to play with my dolls, and she was in her room, and we had wood floors. So, I remember the lady, my foster mom, she's a big lady, and you could hear when she'd walk down the hallway. So you could hear it from the other side of the house, and when you're post to trauma, those are things that kept me safe, like monitoring footsteps, and I knew who was coming from where. But I knew all of a sudden I hear someone stomping so loud, and it was not a stomp I'd ever heard. And they went, like that. And I was like a cartoon character. I got up, I was trying to run so fast and make it back to the room. Like I fell down, and I understood from that moment on in scary movies when they're like, get up. I was like, I couldn't get to that back room fast enough. And I was like, of course, oh my God, this is happening. They're like, no. So eventually we came out of the room, and everything in the kitchen was open. I mean, every cabinet, everything. So we left it as it is. My foster mom came home. She didn't know what to do. She called the psychic. She calls the psychic, and the psychic goes, I just want to tell you, the little girl, she's clairvoyant. She's very, really, really strong clairvoyant. And I was probably about 7 at that age. And I didn't understand it. I was really afraid of it. When you're afraid of it and you don't know how much power you have, it can also be a terrible curse if you don't know how to cleanse yourself, how to like stand strong in good energy and move, because you're a magnet. Anyone who's gifted, you're a magnet to it, right? What happened was I kind of went on autopilot. I was going through my trauma. I was shut off. And then I went to young drinking and, party drugs and stuff like that pretty early on. So I was really numb for a long time. So it was like, I don't know if you guys ever seen that movie, the Dr. Sleep, but it's like it's supposed to be the off story of the kid who was in the Shining house, and he calls the gift Shining, right? And it was like he drank to dim the shining kind of thing. And I understood that. I kind of went into a place where it was just too much. I was always open, but when I couldn't change my environment and my situation as a young kid, having that discernment, you just kind of have to shut off at some point, because you're already like spiritually, mentally ahead of the adults around you. And you're like, oh my God, like, am I crazy? So you kind of like that, you naturally do it. So when I was like about 14, this is probably the most life-changing one where I really understood how like to get them out, like the energy it takes and where it goes. So my grandpa, I said, you know, he's a medicine man. And I my mom got custody of me, went to her house. You know, I had a whole suite setup. It was a 3-story house in the middle of nowhere. And I had the whole bottom story, had wraparound stairs. My mom put wrap lights on it for me. I mean, she really went out of the way, you know, to make me feel really comfortable. But I wouldn't stay down there because the 2 doors that led to my house also it was like kind of like this in the room, but it led to underneath the house. And it was just kind of eerie. Like, I explain to people that aren't mediums that when you feel the presence of a very active house, it's like walking into a room and the roof is gone. It's that feeling of there's just so much air, so much, it's busy. When it's not, it's like snug and like warm, you know, it's like you could just feel it. So that downstairs, it was very open, right? So one night I went down there and I'm doing last minute things. I have my back to the door and I hear again, and it's so weird because it's like the door thing. Remember how I was telling you when I was a kid, this door thing that kept happening. Someone was like trying to get in the door again. And I thought, you know, it was family. I call out to my sister. I'm like, mind you, I'm a kid. I don't know. Don't call out. I'm like, Anita? It stops, like still. So quiet, and then the door's like so I go I run. You know what's weird is telling you guys now I think about it, I'm like, wow, how weird that is, because when I was a kid, you know, it was the door thing was a big thing. So I run up to my mom. I wouldn't sleep in my room for months, and finally she's like, Shanae, like, sleep in your room. I was like, Mom, I'm scared. So anyone knows that if you are close to spirit, you could talk to spirit, your mediumship, you if you are scared, that's a problem. You know, it's a real problem because we're prone to spirits like right now, in here right now. You know what I'm saying? But when you like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's to both. And if you don't know how to balance it, and if you're a kid and you don't even know how to do it, I just remember like not feeling safe. And I know that now in my life, I'm like, woo, that was like a really strong, bad spirit, right? Because that just doesn't exist in my life anymore. So finally, my mom's like, okay, we're going to arrange. Basically, they were going to exercise my room Native American style. There's going to be drumming, burning, chanting. And I'm like, cool, get it out. Whatever it is, just get it out. So my grandpa and his good friend that lead the sweats, they come to go, you know, do it. And I'm like, cool, I'm out of here. And they're like, no. Sit down right here. And I was like, what? And they're like, sit down. I want you to stay right here. You have to be here. And I was like terrified. I was like, I don't want to. So they start chanting and they're burning, they're chanting. And I could literally feel the energy is just, and literally within seconds, sun was shining in the room, same direction, no more than maybe 20 minutes passed. And it was just, I felt it. That was my first time experiencing that evil, seeing it be casted away and the physical things to it. So ever since then, my grandpa just pretty much told me, like, you're special. And part of being special is you stand out. And I've always been taught how to keep myself safe from things. So spirits are around me all the time. I see them all the time, all different kinds, all the time. But for the most part, my space is very guarded and respected from who my army is. They, you know, there's very so often I get new spirits in the house, and it's like very restless nights, stuff like that. But that was probably, I was 13 at that time. And after I seen that, I was just like, whoa, I remember kind of, you know, understanding realities. And that's when my grandpa told me, he goes, you know, they gifted me an eagle feather and sage to like keep myself safe when, you know, through these times. And I remember just activity happening more and more, like little things, like my pictures will get knocked over. And I went to my grandpa, I'm like, I don't understand. The sage is supposed to keep me safe. He says, but people overdo it. It's supposed to use it be used as a very precise way. He said, because saging is a two-way door. He's like, it's almost like equivalent to like blood in an ocean with sharks. It's like the excessiveness to it, like the medicine purpose for it isn't to overdo it. It's very specific times, like you'll know. But you know, that's something I sometimes when I know my friends and stuff and they like cleanse their cards, I just try to tell them, just be careful, be mindful of it, because it attracts, and then add a trait that's for it, you know. So I learned pretty young, but I think that was like the most life transformation of seeing it, I guess, like seeing it get gone and taken care of, and like feeling the weight lifted was just like understanding the weight it brought. So there's like a lot of people that just like they don't protect themselves, they're carrying that and they just don't even know it. And I'm just like a big energy person, so I think I've gotten better at managing. Not a lot of crazy stuff happens around me because they respect my space. And I mean, sometimes when I close my eyes, I'm like, oh, like when you feel it, and like my face being tickled. But other than that, I don't deal with or like scary ones now. It's more of acknowledgement, or when I read, or family, or the normal ones around this property. I live in an older home. You know, this house is pretty old. So other than that, I mean, that's my story.
Anybody else want to go next?
I
Nathan?
think you all up next.
Nathan, you said
Who
you
wants to
had
do it?
another story. I would like to hear it.
Oh yeah, yeah. This one's more depressing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, just making sure, because I got this headphone. When I call people, it's like not very loud. Yeah. So when my mom moved in, she's passed away now. When my mom moved in with me, my old house that I grew up in, um, she came to stay with me for a while because I guess she needed to get back on her feet. But she wasn't really a believer in that stuff, real not hardcore, like until she saw it herself. Um, she started to notice things moving around, and I really do believe it has something to do with location. And because if you have enough negative energy in a place like drug abuse, fights, domestic crap, you're going to build up negative energy, and it's going to attract lower dimensional beings, or just even evil spirits and souls of people that passed on. That's what I believe. Well, sorry, dry throat and drinking some coffee. Yeah, at my old house where I grew up at, there's an old well, and it was there. God, going back at least World War II, because this is an old house as well. And so there's a lot of water under there. So I think that has something to do to help feel the spiritual activity. And so when you're immersed in all that energy, it does something to a person, I believe, and it's just high spiritual activity, some Ghostbusters shit or whatever. Well, she started to believe when she started to solve like boxes and things just fly off for no reason, where it takes a significant amount of force, and that's when she became a believer. And of course, I had the ghost box, and so I have it here with me, but I'm missing a battery or whatever. But people are familiar with this thing, and you just stick a cord, like headphones with a cord to it, and so I had one in my ear, she had another, and she would ask questions and stuff, and we would get like responses, and I felt validated because even though she had her problems and faults, at least she knew I wasn't crazy or whatever. I wasn't just making it up, when it comes to like it working properly. And it actually does have intelligent responses, and it's not just radio chatter, which everyone in the scientific community wants us to believe it's just hocus pocus bullshit. At least the mainstream, they don't want to talk about it for whatever reason, but it's real, and I think it kind of eased her mind knowing that there really is more, and it's not just you going through the motion. You go, oh, I believe in afterlife or whatever because of the whatever religion you grew up in, right? And it's not just saying it. When you actually see it, it does do something to your mind. It gives you more peace of mind or whatever. But the problem is, she has so much negative attachments, negative energy around her because of years of drug abuse or whatever. That I think when she did come back into that high spiritual activity house with me, it recognized her or something, and it just made her way worse. And she wound up dying at her boyfriend's house through fentanyl and stuff like that. And that was very intense because I knew exactly what she couldn't came back in here with me because of the ghost or whatever, and it just made her life way worse than what it already was. But yeah, but yeah, we would get like what they call poltergeist activity, boxes moving out around and stuff for no reason. But it seemed like whenever because she was like angry or whatever, or will argue, bicker or whatever, that picked up. And Shanae, is that her name? Shanae? Sorry. Okay. She mentioned, and it's like they're telling you the truth, out loud in your face, like what's really going on in this world. And people are like, "Oh, it's just a movie. It's just based off a novel. It's off The Shining or whatever." No, man. They're telling you the truth. What's going on in this world, right to your face, and it's more real than what people want to believe. And these energies stir up chaos and stuff, so they get stuck off the fear. And that's why they won't. She mentioned that she's a little girl, she's afraid. It's because they want you to be afraid. They want that fear energy because they're vampiric in nature, and they feed off of that. And that's why they prey upon little kids, because that's how you get the most fear, whatnot. And plus you got all these rabbit holes where I know you can't say certain things where you get shadow ban or whatever, but you know where I'm going. Hopefully,
even on here, they monitor it like that.
Well, I don't know if y'all want to post this on YouTube.
Oh, true. Sorry. Touche.
I think YouTube might do that.
Touche. I was like, so TikTok rules.
But yeah, I passed on the torch. I got more, but yeah, it's pretty intense.
What's that? I'm sorry.
It's pretty intense stuff.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of, because my childhood, I had a lot of trauma, so I have forgot a lot of stuff that happened. But one thing I can think about is whenever I was in college, I do remember us playing with a Ouija board, and we went to, it was Friday 13th, and it was Halloween.
Oh.
And of course, we went to a graveyard. We were just flirting with everything,
asking for it.
Yeah, and
of the dead with the boards. This is a movie title now. At this point,
yeah. So we were playing with a Ouija board, and I remember the Ouija board kept saying, "Someone doesn't believe. Like you need to." It said in like, "You need to leave. You need to leave." And we were like, "Oh, what's going on? Like, is it the where we're at that need to leave? Like, was it going to be like the ghost or the spirits telling us to leave the graveyard, or what?" And we found out it was spelling this guy's name that was with us because he didn't believe in it. Because when we were there, he was like, "Oh, this is bullshit, whatever. This is dumb, blah, blah, blah." And so I remember it spelled out his name, and then we were just all like freaked out.
Yeah.
I remember, I think we put him in the car for a little while or
So I have a couple questions with that story.
something.
First question is, did you say goodbye?
Huh?
Did you say goodbye on the board?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, of course.
Phew.
Oh, yeah.
You know, now kids are going like into cemeteries and because you know on like the Teslas and some of these more
Oh,
electric
yeah, I heard
cars
about
now,
that.
you could see like they're like there's someone here, and like people will be going viral doing posts like driving in cemeteries late at night and it's showing that somebody's walking right there.
Oh, yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, it's like I think that's kind of cool. I just like showing. But I had to ask about the saying goodbye because sometimes they're like dun dun dun, and I'm still
Yeah.
having issues. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I've been haunted.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can remember. I've had some like weird experiences, like outer body experiences and stuff. And it was like, you know, walking through people's homes and stuff. But I can't really think about my childhood just because of I had a lot of stuff going on. So,
Right, I get that, and I felt like that's when I knew at a young age, like I was like targeted by something at a higher force that was like pure like evil, like. And I remember feeling like when I was young, like the home I lived in and like how evil they were and like the stuff that happened there. I'm just like, I remember feeling like, why do they hate me so much? Like I was like 3-4 years old. I remember I was just so tiny and I just like, what possibly could a 3-4-year-old, it was like a demonic thing in her. And it hated me. And like the reason why I say that is like natives, we call them shapeshifters, meaning like it's a thing that it shapes and shifts and moves into however it's going to affect you, right? And you know, native, we'll even quote like in the Bible when he says like when they first came into contact with this other thing, and they said like, "What is your name?" And they said, "We are legion, for we are many." And it's every culture, they don't have the names for it, but they acknowledge it. Like Native Americans, we have history, like we have our own name for Bigfoot, we have our own name for these things out there that we don't like to give them too much acknowledgement. But I think like that's when it shifted to me, like spirits were really nothing for me. And I had my first encounter with something else. And I don't know what was going on, but it was like a transition. Like there was something, I felt like something big was coming because so much stuff was changing and drastically in my face and so different. Like I used to only be able to feel them and hear them. And they would like, you know, push things off but I never could see them. And one night, overnight, I could see them. They were everywhere. And I was like, overwhelmed in my regular home. Like I had so many questions because a lot of them were different. So there were ones that looked just like you and me, but none of them could talk to me. So it was like it was weird because I've always been on the other line where I would hear things and, it was more clairaudience to them, but I couldn't see them. And then it switched and I could see them, but I couldn't hear them. It was like, I have questions in this whole thing. I wanted to talk to native people in medicine where it's safe to talk about it. But basically, like, I had a lot of questions because I seen people that looked like exhaust, like, in summer when a car is, you could see through the traffic and the exhaust is kind of, I seen like people that were like see-through like that. I seen people that were kind of cloudy. I seen people that looked just like me and you. I seen people only in reflections. It was like, I was so overwhelmed and I couldn't understand why all of a sudden. It's just like, I was like, God, I don't want these eyes. Like, please take them back. But I know I was getting the message that like this was kind of already written in for me. And it was like just me stepping into more of where I'm supposed to be, that because of trauma and insecurities and second guessing myself, I really dimmed that and lowered my vibration in that. So I was experiencing it, but on the worst, weakest level and spectrum of it, when my power is really great, and I actually, they fear me, how strong I am. So that night I was like, I got so overwhelmed. I was just like, hey, everyone, get out, get out. I didn't care how crazy I looked. I'm like, get out. I said, if you are not my ancestors from good source, if you are not my angels and I don't know you, if you want bad for me, you need to get the F out of my home now. And it was like they were going through the door. It's like if I ever told someone that I was like, I thought I was losing my mind. It was so excessive and it was so isolating. And then I noticed outside my windows, there were other people looking in. And these people couldn't come in my home, but they were in my windows, and they were creature things. I seen in like different, like I seen ones that looked almost like, how do you say that? Like extraterrestrial, right? Ones that like almost mimicked like a camouflage of like Alien versus Predator. I'm being so serious when I tell you that, the Predator, right? Mm-hmm. No, there's no like size really, really small and move into matter. That's like a twisting thing, like in that movie where she's pulling it out, right? It's all these different ones, but these particular ones caught my eye because they couldn't come into the home. You know, I knew at that point what I was dealing with was something a little different than I experienced in my life. But the inner divine warrior I am, I call it like demon slayer, right? Wasn't afraid. I went face to face with him in the window, and I was telling him I had to probably ask one of them probably 1,000 times to leave. It's like it was so strong, but I caught so much attention once they were like, oh my God, she could see me, she could see me, she could see me. Then it started rippling to other frequency radio, like think about radio stations, like we're on 102, 102. I know 103, 104, 105, and all these different intertwining things are in these different frequencies. It's a very scary place to be open to, because it's things that, yeah, they'll believe you about ghosts, but will they believe you about real prehistoric things that have been around forever, you know? And it took me a while. I was almost getting exhausted, and something was just telling me, no, just like, no, keep going, get them out. So eventually I did, but they had like the nastiest smiles on their face, like laughing at, mocking me that I was telling them to get out. And a lot of them, some of the actual spirits did too. But when I tell you something went through my body where I just was like, get out. One of them at one point when I was like telling it to leave, like she didn't want to go. And she was like really like bitchy with me. Sorry for my language, but I could see it. And the mist kind of like came into my face, almost like Haunted Mansion. You know how they do that in the Haunted Mansion? Yeah. Where they're like, and I was like, oh, you know, it took me to a second to be like, oh, I'm stronger than these motherfuckers. They wish that they could be flesh like me. Like that was the moment I started realizing, oh, they ain't shit. So after that happened, you know, I was like trying to get along now in this home that I've lived in, but all of a sudden I'm seeing all these new visitors here, and they're very interested with me. Like my room was where I could see out my French doors, and it was nighttime, so I could see, you could see the reflection of the inside if the lights are on. There were people inside the reflection that weren't there that I was seeing. And at one point it was someone sitting on my other side of my bed. And I was like, but I wasn't afraid. Some of them I weren't afraid. Some of them I was like, oh my God. But there was one particular one that she just stood by the door and she just stared at me. She rocked like this back and forth, and she just had this fucking hatred for me. Like I need to get you. And she kind of went like this, like to like think of a movie, like, ah, and I fell off my bed. I'm like, ah. I was like, they're everywhere. Like, I'm telling you, I tuned into somewhere that I was always destined to be, but it kind of hit me all in once. And I remember I was like, I got out of the house. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm tripping. So a friend picks me up. I leave. I come back a couple hours later. I could see the people still chilling on my port on the fucking steps, just chilling. And these people look like normal people. Like, I'm telling you, this girl looked like she could have been Honey Boo Boo's great aunt. I'm telling you, she was like bigger. She had her hair in a bun. You know, she had a red tank top on. It wasn't, you know, and there was little girls. She was reading a magazine, and they didn't really acknowledge me. But I'm like, I could fucking see you. If I would have went back, I probably would have addressed it. Who are you? What do you want? But I was so afraid at that time that it would make my heart like I just like it was terrifying. So I pull in the driveway and I'm telling my friend, can you not see those people? And he probably thought I was a fucking wackadoo, right? Whatever. So I end up going to bed. It was hard that night. Let me tell you, it was like the house of horrors. Like, it was so fucking hard to go to sleep. I go to sleep. I wake up and I slept so good. So good. Like, great. Like, some of the best sleep I've ever had. And the sun's shining in my room and I'm like up and I'm like, okay. So I come out and like during that time, my mom and I weren't getting along and it was just kind of fitting for the energy. It was just like, I felt like it was doing what it did when I was a kid. And it was like attacking me from perspectives that it would really hurt me because they can't really get me head on. But they can get people that are gifted around me that don't keep themselves protected. And it could get me that way, I guess you could say, right? Because it's the ones you don't expect it from, where it comes from. So the next morning, it's like a clean slate. Her and I are talking and I'm thinking like it almost like it was a dream. Like I wanted to pack away and go to like a spiritual home, and because I was so afraid of what I now had witnessed on another level. Like, it's always upped in my life, and I just was like, damn, like seeing what the opposition is and what bad moods can be and what sickness can be and tired could be and where it comes from and how it fucking makes you sick and it drains your life from you and makes you fight with your partners and makes you think bad things. It's like the real purest form of evil, and it's like I was face to face with it, and it changes you. So that morning, I'm like almost kind of trying to be in denial with it. Like, okay, like I don't know what that was. But so I'm talking to my mom, and all of a sudden this man, and I'm going to say a man because that's what I read. He was very, very tall. He was like maybe like 6'8", 6'9". It was all black. There was no color. But I seen his head. There was no hair. It was a body. And he just, that's not what me say it.
Yeah, right.
That happens sometimes when I'm talking about this stuff. So all of a sudden it just appeared. So that's when I explained to people what they know what dwelm jumpers are. The ones that don't live in this reality. They don't live here. They kind of come here and feed on energy, and then they're gone. They don't have like a physical matter existence here. It's like almost time warping. Like, oh, he just appeared and he was that big motherfucker's there. And it was like, I got the biggest fear, and he started charging my mom. Mind you, my mom can't see him. She has her back to him, and I'm going, leave her alone. And my mom was like, I was so scared, Shanae. She goes, I didn't want to turn around. That was the moment I'm like, oh my God. But it was telling me something. He was charging at my mom. I seen it. And my mom and I had been not getting along. My mom had been like real dark and stuff. You know, I know what it was telling me. I know it. And I was like, you motherfucker. Well, basically never seen him again. When I was like, get out, he's gone. So fast forward, I talked to my niece about it. She's kind of the one that she's learning it. So she's probably stronger in mediumship than me. Which makes it very dangerous because she doesn't nurture it, you know? So she's dealt with things her whole life living in this house. So I started talking to her, and I'm telling her, you know, the lady that's by the door, she goes, Auntie, she used to jump on my bed and scream in my face. It was like being able, like, yes, I've seen that person. I've seen that person. I've seen that person, down to the tall man. And that's where I say they ask, and my dad, he's very much, you know, he understands like the severity of the spiritual war that we're in, and what's really out there is not just spiritual, like me, you know. But to see it, and like it was just like it was. I wasn't afraid in that moment, but after, there's times where I'm like, you know, what was that? Will it come back? But you know, other people in my family have seen it. Not all of them, because not all of them are gifted in that way. But that night, I called that the night the House of Horrors, because I probably seen over 100 of them all around here. I'm talking colonial style, caveman style, Indian style, regular people. I'm like, who is this Asian lady? I don't know her. Like, why are you here? It made no sense. Like, but you know, ever since that night, it taught me to harness my gifts in another way, where you know, I'm like awoke to certain things. So like, I just make sure I'm doing a lot of prayers. And my prayers, like my altar, I have an altar in my room, and I have family protection. I pray for all of my family, not just myself. I pray for anyone that I feel the corruption could happen to. You know what I'm saying? Where the people just like, you're not acting like yourself. You know, I pay attention to stuff like that because it's real. And sometimes people carry spirits to them and they don't know it. And it comes out in low energy. It comes out in just not wanting to do anything, just like neglecting yourself. I mean, like one day's one way and then it just stops. You know, it's like just paying attention that sometimes there's something that some eyes cannot see. And it could be a generational thing. It could be something that you never really put away. And, you know, it could be something that followed you, you know, your entire life. And I feel like that night was like, I took over my power the day that I was in there, and they chanted and they exorcised that spirit out, or that whatever it was, because it was something, it was very strong. And then when I got older, I got to see the power of what I said goes. And then you really understand all of these species, we'll say, right? A lot of them, like, what's the common denominator in any culture's religions? It's like these bad beings, right? And that they can overtake you, right? But I don't think it necessarily always means exactly that. But we can have like a monkey on our back kind of thing. You know, we can not realize that we're living our life and we have this weight on us and we don't know where it's coming from. And it's why, like, you know, drinking a lot of alcohol and people that are on drugs open themselves to that kind of stuff. But I think that that was a pivoting moment, seeing them and knowing like they really couldn't harm me. And I was like, big dog. And I mean that in all humbleness, but not humbleness. Like I was like, I understood in that moment, like they wanted what they can't have. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like the only time people should be afraid for spirits and is really like in your sleep, because from what I was taught is that like sleeping states of unconsciousness is fair playing grounds for that kind of stuff, because here they're here in hours. So it's like they soften us up by coming around and doing the scares and doing that. It like takes a little bit of us every time, to a point where even when we go slip into unconsciousness, we are weak. You know what I'm saying? We some of us are travelers in our sleep. We don't know it, but our sleep person knows that we're like, I know in sleep, I come up to battle with things, and I have dreams where the dreams are telling me it'll be my specific sibling and there's something else there, and I'm immediately wanting to get rid of it, you know, just stuff like that. So I always just tell people, make sure that my thing is like, before I go to sleep, that's why I'm like, you know, watch, you know, angels, watch, guard my vessel, look out for me, look out for my family. But physically, that was probably a liberating moment for me, seeing them. And it's like, no matter how frightened I could be, they weren't doing anything, because they couldn't really do anything but intimidate and scare me, because my eyes were trying to make sense of something I'd never seen. Only on movies. He looked like bark. Like his skin was like, his head was really long and it was like spiky, and it was like almost like he was he looked like a dinosaur, but he looked like a tree.
Hmm.
And he was like one of the hardest one. It was like,
So
yes,
walking trees.
yes. Did anyone ever watch the Sabrina sagas on Netflix?
Oh yeah.
Okay, do you remember when they summoned the guys and there was like Lord of the Flies and they were like the three demons? There was one of those, and how their head is pointy. That's exactly how it looked. The only thing I noticed is that those ones couldn't like break through. There was another one. It was like Skeletor kind of like, and they were not scary. They were just, I could like feel who was bad and who was good. And the tree things were like a sinister smile. Like, I don't know, like it knew like its power, but it didn't know if I knew mine at that time. I don't know how to explain it. There was like Skeletor things and they were just like there. They were just, this house drew up a lot of attention. And then there was like, ones that were really tall and it was like, I could just only compare it to like, they looked like they like came out of the trees or something like that,
Yeah.
But the extraterrestrial ones, those ones were like camouflage, but like, I know this is going to sound like this is a little creepy, and I put this on my daughter's life. I wish I was lying about this. I was outside and I seen everything. I saw a horse, like a guy, I was like, whoa. All of a sudden I was like looking down by my driveway. And if anyone has seen Harry Potter, the bad things that are like the black things, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yes. So it was kind of like that farther down, and something told me like, look away, like you're caught. Like my antennas were going off. I was starting to get afraid. Next thing I know, that thing is right in front of me floating, but it's like translucent. He was like translucent, but I could see that he almost, like his face was almost like snake print in a way. I know that sounds, but like reptilians, right? So that one was outside. It scared me. So but I didn't want to show it. I didn't want to like let them know I fucking see you. Cause it was like, they're like, can she see us? Like, hold up. I'm going to stand in front of her. And I was like, oh my God. I go in the house and one was in like, just like appeared, was like walking, just passing through in my living room. And I got to see it and it like walked just like we do, like had a fast pace. It had like, I know this sounds really weird, but it was almost like it had like a suit. Like it was like alien shit. I don't know how to explain it more than that. And I was like, I ignored, I could like feel what was bad. And they were like kind of in my face, but I wouldn't acknowledge them. Didn't deal with that one again. But the last one which I also seen good, I didn't see just bad, and I tell people all the time that angels don't look like what you think they look like. Like they can kind of be a little scary if you're not desensitized to that kind of stuff, and understanding that they're not flesh beautiful things. They're very tall. Their heads are shaped a little differently. And they won't do anything. And I always see them in people's doorways. Like, so that tells me like the protectiveness. I know that sounds really weird, but they'll just post up and they just watch you. And then there were some people that I would see that were like, I don't know if they could see me, but I could see them. And they would be like regular people. Like I could see them like almost like in their life, how they look like regular people, but their eyes looked like, how like cats' eyes glow, or like how nighttime cameras, like how the eyes look. That's how their eyes looked. And they had very dazed like looks on their face. And I was so terrified. I didn't want to like walk in front of them because I didn't know what they were going to do. Like they jump out, but it's like, it was weird. I kind of walked by one and it didn't do anything. I seen it was harmless. So I seen the glowing eyes ones. Like, I feel like those are like the good ones. As weird as that sounds, those are like the peaceful ones. That's why I tell people like your guides and stuff like that, like the good ones that are sent, because sometimes we pick up guides that aren't family. They're just, spirits that are around us. They learn to like love you. Like I have ones around me that have been around me since I was a kid. And it's not an overcasting of badness. It's like they grow to love you and they do their work in a station that we cannot control. And that's the job. And for me, my next life comes, like who I'm going to be in my next life is I'm going to be like that soldier in that end. So I think that was probably like, you would think that's enough to like make somebody like almost go senile. Like it was hard. And I remember feeling like spirit was like talking to me, like I wanted to like shut it out. And I was like, I felt like if I would have wrote it a little way, like I feel like it could make people crazy because it could be isolating and it could be very traumatizing where like, I mean, I'm just kicking it in my room here, but it's like you learn like it's part of you and like it goes with you. And I feel like God just like gave it to me one day, and now I can like turn it off and I keep my head down, and I don't say that in a way where I feel like I'm bowing down to it. It's just I'm just not going to be the hot topic with them, if that makes sense. And that's everywhere I go. So, I'll see them and there's like, invisible, like people, but like almost like an invisible man. When you see them walk by, like they're invisible, but you can see, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I see them. And they, in the physical, but if I'm doing a mediumship read, they only show me things that they want me to acknowledge so that people build trust with me. So a lot of people don't think I'm lying about it. Like I've had reads where this girl kept showing me her shoes, and I didn't know what they were called, but I knew what shoes they were. They were a pair of Jordans. And the girl who was contacting me was, she lost her friend. She was desperate for that. You know how that goes, right? But she was also that percentile where she didn't believe, but she just had nothing left in her but to want to try to believe because it brought her closer to her friend that passed away. So she came to me and she kind of let me know, like, I don't really believe in this stuff, yada, yada, yada. So I get this picture when they want to communicate. They're not in front of me. It's like in my head. It's like flash things. But she was like dribbling a basketball, and I seen these Jordans. So I told her, I said, she's a basketball player for sure, like pretty girl, but tomboy. She's like, absolutely. I said, and something with shoes. I said, a pair of shoes. She goes, what kind of shoes? And I said, they're the Jordans. I said, hold on. So I Google it, find the picture, send it to her. She goes, oh my fucking God. She videos me. She has a shrine in her house, and those exact same shoes were on the shrine. Those were her shoes. So that was kind of like one of my first reads. I was like, whoa, like I know a crazy amount. And it was like, where did that come from? But that's where like the difference of like reading them now to compared to sometimes outside things. Like I would say they know better than to knock anything down around me. They know better. Like I'm like, it just doesn't happen. But at one point in my life, it's like their beliefs and they pick on you. And it really just pushed me into this community, which I feel I've always been connected to since I was a little girl. And, I was 2 years old and I almost passed away in a surgery. My mom kind of said when I came back, I was just different. And I was very like grown up and very independent, and I just wasn't afraid. I didn't have terror to like things. I've seen spirits, and I would even then freak people out. And I think from now, this has probably been the most peaceful it is ever in my entire life. And I'm 32, barely started getting. So that's mine. And like, it's really kind of what led me was the protection, the acknowledgement of the existing of it. Now it's cool, acknowledgement. Now, how do I protect myself? How do I harness this gift? How do I shine it? How do I protect me? How to protect my daughter? How to protect her dad? Because that's her dad. He's going to affect my kid. How to protect my mom. And I feel like I've gotten a pretty good balance for it so far. But that's kind of what led me here to y'all.
Okay, cool. Does anybody else want to share anything?
Amy?
She left. She had to go to work in the morning.
Okay. So it's just us. So okay. I don't really have much to add to that, but I took some notes, so I remember from your story. You mentioned like something about like a movie or whatever. You know, it came at you like a movie.
Mm.
So see, like they all have one thing in common: it's fear, and they put it in the movie, like I was saying, Doctor Sleep, how they feed on fear.
I'm
We
gonna have to
also
watch
got
this
Freddy.
movie. What's the name of the
Yeah,
movie
what is
called?
this on? Like, where is this?
If you have iMac, if you have Max, it's on Max.
Okay.
What's
Yeah,
it
or
called?
yeah, I think some.
It's called Doctor Sleep.
Doctor Sleep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll have to check
It's
Yeah,
a
it
it's
out.
good.
got the.
It's a really good movie. It's a good movie.
It is really good. It's got that Obi-Wan Kenobi actor. I can't think of his name right. Ian or something. McGregor.
McGregor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and you also have Freddy Krueger, of course, based on fear, and then you got the one that really stuck with me the most was It, the new one, Chapter Two, not the first one, Chapter Two,
I love those
where
stars.
it shows you what it really is.
Yeah.
And if you, I'm sure y'all seen the MH370 videos with Ashton Forbes making the rounds where you got the orbs surrounding the plane, and it just like zaps it, and it's like these three orbs come in, and then you got It Chapter Two, and it turns out this creature is three orbs, right? And that's what it really is. It just makes this clown to be a representative of
Mhm.
what it is.
Yeah.
And so it feeds off of fear. So they're just showing everything in these movies, and that's why everyone's got all these conspiracy theories about how Hollywood is into the dark arts or whatever, and they're doing casting spells and all. And if you really look at all the stuff they're putting out, it's very cryptic and stuff. And they're telling you just to your face what's going on.
Yeah.
And that explains explains a lot about why these beings prey on fear.
Yeah.
So so I mean that's all I got. That's just
That like there's a reason why I'm scared of the dark. Even as an adult, I don't sleep in the dark. I will not sleep in the dark. And my dad, it's funny because my dad is too, and I've come from giftedness on both sides. Actually, my dad's side, we come from Indian witches. We go back Shamanka. I come from Shamanka ties, and so when I tell people like this was just a birthright and I had no control over it, I didn't. So it was like when things hit me, it was like, yeah, life sucks right now, but you're gonna have to learn. I just was like how to protect yourself and wonder what's bad luck and stuff like that. You feel like you just have like really bad, like, why does this always happen to me? I felt like I had that really bad luck in those times. And it's like, that's why I just tell people it's just so important because it affects stuff that you may not even see. And if you even like, yes, like just you ask yourself, like, do I think I have that around me? I would say if you even slightly have that voice in your head that says, probably attend to it because your life is going to feel like I seen, like for me, my health get better for me, my immune system. And I know this sounds really weird, but people that, in my life that I'm just told to do what I'm supposed to do and how to carry myself. I hold what I'm not supposed to tell people. There's a lot I hold back. I'm not supposed to say to people. And, I felt like, I would get messages through like, my tarot, through my people, through random, which my favorite is like the lives, because you're catching that real time on a random thing where you don't follow them. Right. So it's like, I'm here where I'm supposed to be. Like someone wants to tell me something, and a lot of it was like, there are people in the background and, they make fun of they question your gifts and they do this and they do that. And how they were dealt with would be like minor health things, like, and I'm not exaggerating this, sick all the time, styes, hospital visits. And it's like, I know that sounds, but that spirit and guides don't work how I feel like some people think that they work. As long as you stay true and you obtain your birthright into who you're supposed to be, they'll work everything else out. So I felt like before I walked with more fear, and I feel like I faced my fear with that. And I feel like they know I've seen it all now. So I don't feel like they know that I don't care about them, but sometimes I feel like they're wanting to keep me up, or they'll like keep my mom awake and stuff like that. But it's nothing scary. And when I even feel like that, because sometimes, I have my regulars here, and then sometimes there's like visitors, not welcomed ones, passing through, and you could just tell because the energy gets changed, things get messed with, like things that just on a daily don't happen. So I know that, I feel that it's like a passing spirit, but you got to be so careful with these passing spirits because one of them might want to fucking stay. So you got to keep up on that, and you clean house because you feel safe and warm where you are. I promise you're surrounded by spirits, even right now as I'm talking to you, Nathan, especially, right? So it's like real heavy around you, but you're okay because those are the good spirits. Those are the ones that you've had around almost your whole life, right? Those are the ones, it's like the people that are alone. And this is when I've always called myself the popular loner, because I always was alone. I would get grounded out in my room. I just was alone all the time, my whole childhood from 2 to now. And like, I'm so okay with it. Like, I can't explain it. I'm so filled with comfort. And I didn't realize it until I will look after a baby that I know is very gifted, and I can spot it out, I know. And I actually will watch him, and I could feel the spirits at the house monitoring me to make sure, like, almost like backseat driving. They're like, oh, don't, like, this is a special one, where I don't know how to explain that, if that makes sense. Like, they visit the gifted ones very early, and I could determine from really young children who's very, very gifted, what they have, what they're going to be able to do. And I watched this little boy, and they are very curious about him. And I caught him playing he was going and laughing, right? I tell his mom, she's like, that's him playing peekaboo. So they were like intrigued. So they're here, they exist, but they're very mindful. And there's a comfort, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I wouldn't know what my life has ever felt like without spirit around me. It's like every now and again, it's like the ones that kind of come in, and I'll have nightmares. I can't sleep. It's like wants to keep me up, and like my TV it messes with my TV. It pauses my TV. But I used to get so afraid at that stuff. Like, even though I wasn't speaking it, I always say, like, you remember SpongeBob? I know it's gonna be funny. I'm comparing SpongeBob, but do you remember the episode where Patrick is copying everything that SpongeBob's doing? And he's like, SpongeBob's getting so mad about it. He's just like, oh, like, can't you just freaking like stop copying me, kind of thing. So SpongeBob goes like this and covers his mouth, and then you hear him in his head. He's like, at least I'm safe inside my mind. And he's not. And then Patrick's like, at least I'm safe. So I tell people I work with, like upcoming, like mediumship people that don't have a choice but to get with the program, to keep themselves safe. And I will tell them, being a medium is like that. You're not safe even in your mind. You have to be so careful. You think just because you're like, talking about it ain't shit. They're already in depth to you. They can already feel you. They're in your head. So I always say you have to check your thoughts, because even if you're not, you could be in your head like, I'm not going to acknowledge them. They already heard that. They already heard it. So now they're like, we're going to turn it up a little bit of a notch. So I've learned to strengthen my mind, my physical. And then really, I learned that the gift, all of us, we do cards and stuff. So we are walking Ouija boards. Okay. We're doing the Ouija board, but we are the Ouija board. You know what I'm saying? So we just make sure when we look at it, people, how they attend to Ouija boards and how they need to cleanse. Same thing for us, because we don't need that. Really, no one in here really needs cards, right? We don't need them. But people like to believe what they see, and they have more of a belief system to that see to believe. So, you know, when you give these hard reads, like it's more in depth. But my point is like gifted souls, we don't really need it. You know what I'm saying? So learning that we are in like a channel, right? That's what we are. And you ask yourself, channel to what? Who are you speaking to? Who are you able to speak to that others can't speak to? You know? So like learning your gifts and like how strong they are. And then when you speak on them on a bold level like that, it's echoed and it's heard where it needs to be heard. And it can strengthen you or it can like make you scared. I know people that real life spiritual psychosis got the best of their mind. So some people, you know, like people be trying to discredit the people sometimes walking down the street, and they're like talking to someone, and you're like, there's no way. Like they're talking to somebody. You know what I'm saying? I remember being in jail. I know, right? I went to jail for like, you know, not long at all. But there was this girl and she was in her own like cell, and she was like, she'd be laughing. And I remember like waking up like, and she'd be talking. I can hear her. There was no doubt in my mind that there wasn't someone in there talking to her, but she's so discredited for being crazy. So in adult life, right, when we were kids, it would be like, oh, the problem child, never believe anything they say. So it would harness this poltergeist to going, okay, your parents gave me access to you. Now I can take all the access I want because you have, that's what they do is they isolate you so they can attack you, right? And how they attack you, it goes into many different ways. Like that's just terror every day for a kid or someone to see things flying off the shelf and it's like not leaving you alone. I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to jump into your body, but it could probably take you over and you might not be who you really are. You might make drastic decisions.
I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think they can influence your thoughts and your mind and what you think,
yes.
And they can control you that way. Because the reason why that happens is because we're all born in this magnetic field and our consciousness is interwoven with it. And that's why you get these EMF readers and you pick up electromagnetic frequencies. It's because that's what our consciousness is. We're embedded in it. And the sun too. The sun's very strong. And when they say there's like I'm never getting too far off topic of the ghost stuff, but this has something to do with it. They're talking about a spiritual shift in consciousness because the sun's doing unprecedented things and they know it. That's why you get all these. You can't blame everything on, what they say, what fuels our car, right? I don't want to get too. You can't blame everything on that. You got to put some blame on the solar activity and the pull it has and how it. That's why you're getting all these weird storms and stuff like that. It's because there's changes happening. And it's going to affect our consciousness as well. It's going to shift the way we see things, perceive things. And a lot of people are going to get like an upgrade. It sounds woo-woo, but it's not. And especially when the frequency changes. And you're going to have more access to your gifts.
If they put names to them so people can kind of get on natal charts and people starting to, I'm not like in the field, I respect it, but like the astrology, natals, it's not my vice. I respect it. It's just not what I was gifted for. But I definitely believe in it. And it now it's becoming to be more of a popular culture thing where people are acknowledging, oh, Mercury retrograde. Now, do they know more than what Steve's the Mercury retrograde? No, that's where they're baby witches. They're getting their way in. So it's like an acknowledgement of like a weird, everybody it just messes with something else. Like, where people are a little bit more moody or tired or technology's kind of running down a little bit. It's a strong spiritual shift is what's happening. And it's like, you think about it, electricity is one of the biggest things that spirits grab hold of. I feel like it just depends. And people are like, no wonder when they're like, oh, it just ended. People are like, no wonder why. Like I just had the worst luck in this last month,
Well, you don't have to worry about just Mercury retrograde. Other planets retrograde all the time.
Saturn.
And people don't focus on
back.
So and
that's
they don't
like
focus
how
on that.
That's like how I describe a natal chart. Like when you think about it on a physics level, like as my bike says over there, I have a sticker on the back that says Hail Sagan. But at the end of the day, like on a physics level, right, we're all little aspects of the universe, right? And so when you look at it on a natal chart, you can see how all of those little aspects are going to come to life within this body and this vessel. Then you can get into the game of playing the comparison and how those elements are going to grow up with siblings, or environmental placement, because then you get into the cartography of like where your placements are.
Yeah,
But
I've never had. I need one. I need one of these readings. I've never had an extensive one, and I hear they're worth experiencing in the lifetime. And I feel like it would help me understand more about myself too. So.
Yeah, because it's all about like how those elements, because they're constantly, we're ever evolving, ever changing. Like the sun, like we think that we're just sitting here spinning like this, but no, we're actually like in a spiral chasing after the sun. Like we are all hurtling like at incredible speed. So all of these elements are maturing, growing, changing, like and they're all going to have an effect for sure. And aspects matter. Like,
I just want your guys' opinion on this, because I've heard this. I follow a few like pretty big like spiritual mentors that are like they're traveling, doing seminars. Doing the dream for anyone in our community to be like, wow, like to be so successful to go off and just explain shit to people that they just never would have experienced in their life. One of those is like, they say like people fall into like we have a filing cabinet and it's like gifts. And it's like, astro, it's more like, how do you say that? What's the alien? Extraterrestrial. So you're either like on the extraterrestrial plane or you're like on angelic plane, right? And you could, for me, a lot of the things you could see where people are really heavy in these is people that I feel are into the planet alignments, and they're real big on the sky. I always tell them you're really close to extraterrestrial plane. Like that's your vice, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's a hard thing and it's not for everybody. So when I see people do it, I'm like, it's really an art, and I need to experience it now that I have like more people that in my life that can do it. I would definitely do it one time in my life.
Okay.
So, yeah, but the aliens, all that, I just feel like you're either connected to one or the other. They say there are people that could be mixed, where you kind of feel connected in both, in a sense. But like you can kind of tell, like there's people that are straight, pure humanitarians, like through and through. Like that's angelic plane, and they're here for I'm talking. There's people that genuinely come, only help people. That is their sole mission. That's for like genuinely, where you've met those people in your life. You're
that's
like
you Aquarius.
So genuine.
Hi, that's me, Aquamoon.
Yeah.
And I was born in the night too,
like,
so
your purpose is to help.
My mom actually said that too. Like as a little kid, like she always saw me like on the playground. Like I would specifically look for that kid that was othered, that was the misfit. And I would specifically seek them out, and I would go over to them and I would try and help them to feel included. Like my mom said, I've been like that since jump. Like just always about
a healer.
Taking
the
care
problem
of
is like psychology, and I always tell, because I'm big on psychology, because not everything is spiritual. It's a hand in hand, or trauma is what divides that. And I tell people
the nature and the nurture, the elements as they evolve.
Being a healer is okay as long as you healed from trauma of self-pleasing, of breaking these cycles of, okay, I was the kid that had to fill the space because I had to pick up. Like no one asks you to do that. It's like a natural thing. Even as a child, we step into. So we learn that the goal when we get older is to polish that and be able to help in great sources, not help. What's the word? Like when someone like contributes to someone, I guess, not living in a good way, you like, let's say this with like people with addictions. What is it called? You, enable. So your healing is good until you're healing so well that you're enabling somebody from self-growth spiritually, mentally, could be even physically. I feel like spirit has our back in that sense, where they're like, no, absolutely, your time is up on this person. But trauma is what separates how much time we put into those people versus other people don't waste their effing time to even put that. And then there's I need to make you better. And like, you know, you came out such on that good side, Charlie, where like there's a lot of people I know that they're just such genuine healers and they don't even know it, and they're getting the life sucked out of them by energy vampires that they know it more than they know it. And I think that healer thing, and then the trauma, you know, when you learn earlier, like to be able to cut the cord and put your boundaries up and not feel sorry, because that's what trauma taught you, was to feel bad. So it's like spirit moves through that too. It's like spirit sometimes is testing you to remind you how much you care about yourself, how much you're going to set those boundaries. Sometimes throw you off with those random ghost things just to keep you on your toes. Because comfortability and spirituality, like we're always going through something. We're always like, or we know something's coming, or we're aware of someone else's stuff. And it's like you have to make sure in such a strong place to juggle that, and then add the human experience on top of that. So the human experience is jobs, times, to be here at this time, do this at that time. So it's really nice to be here. I'm always like in support of being in environments where like this kind of stuff is talked about, because some people think it's taboo, but I believe it's strength. It's like taking strength in the situation. Like, I don't know. It's like, don't talk about it because things happen. You know, normally if this was like a year ago, I would be like, oh, there's no way I'm doing this in my home. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm aware of like, when you talk about things and I hang up the phone, that's when it's like, they're like, okay, biatch, I got you now. They're like, knock something over. It's like, you know, so it was good vibes. I'm really glad I came here to hear you guys out today.
Yeah, thanks for hosting us, Leticia.
That was thank you, Amy, thank you, Leticia, thank you, Charlie, and thank you, Shanae.
Yeah, thanks to everybody coming and hanging out tonight.
Yeah, fun.
This is fun. We got to do this again soon.
Yeah,
do it, and we'll do another topic too. So you guys need to send me some stuff.